Hi there and welcome back to my channel. This is Sean, the Honest Book Reviewer, with another book review. In this video we're discussing The Last One Left, written by Riley Sager. Here's the book. Now, it's his newest book. It's marketed as a Gothic style mystery. Now, the mystery's there, of course, but I didn't really get a strong Gothic feel from this at all. It's there maybe in some sections, but it's quite weak in my opinion. What this book suffers from is an overuse of many things. Overuse of coincidence, overuse of over-explanation, and an overuse of leaps of intuition. And it does ruin the plot for me when that happens in this book. So overall, not a great book in my opinion. Definitely not Riley Sager's strongest book. I think he's written better books. Let's talk more about the book now. This book is a very simple plot. It's set in 1983, and I don't mind it having a simple plot. I think sometimes a simple plot is best because it gives the author a chance to just make that plot work. Did it happen in this book? Well, yes and no. Certain parts were good, but other things didn't work very well in this book. But anyway, back to the story. So Kit McDeer is our protagonist, and she's a caregiver in this story. And she's being given her new contract, and it's sort of like a last hope contract, her last chance. And if you want to learn more about why that is, you need to read the book. I'm not going to give that away in this video. So anyway, her new contract is caring for a lady called Lenora Hope. And Lenora Hope has her own history and her own local folklore surrounding her. She's the last surviving member of a family massacre, and a lot of people believed she was responsible. But was she? That's the big mystery in this story. That's the whole concept of this plot, basically. Kit McDeer has her own kind of mystery about what happened with someone she was caring for. And then there's a mystery, a huge mystery about Lenora Hope. And Kit going to this home, caring for Lenora, opens up the chance to explore that mystery and solve it. That's the whole idea of this plot. So it's very simple, but certain elements are good. I mean, the mystery itself is very strong, but other things aren't so good. There are three main things that were overused in this story. The first being coincidence. There are too many of them in this story, and just some of them just come out of left field. And towards the end of the story, probably the last maybe 25% of the book, it's just piled on. There's coincidence after coincidence. There's just too many of them, and you just start rolling your eyes about them because there's just too many of them to make sense, to be real, and it just kind of ruins the story for me when that happens. Overuse of explanation in this story is another big thing, and it happens mainly in dialogue and these type of journal entries that one character types up, and that whole overuse explanation in those two, I guess, devices in the book. I would rather it being in the narrative. I'd rather have explanation in the narrative, because at least you're getting sort of character, what's in their mind. So you're getting into the mind of the character while they're thinking about things possibly, and you're getting that tension in the narrative building up, all that suspense. In this dialogue, in this story, and through those kind of journal entries, there's no suspenseful build up when that happens. So you're getting explanation, overuse of explanation, because very heavy detail in some sections. It takes away from any possible Gothic feel. It strips away any possible suspense. And just felt strange to me, the choice. Why put it in dialogue when narrative suspense is so much better when you're trying to write a Gothic type story? Overuse of intuition. I mean, there's huge leaps by certain characters in this story, especially towards the end of the book. When it happens, it is an eye-rolling moment. I mean, I just had to stop for a second and just pause, because it was too big a leap. It just didn't feel real, and it just kind of came out of nowhere, and snap kind of revelation about a certain thing that there's no link there, no concrete link for that character to make that decision, to solve that part of the mystery. And it just seemed just a huge leap. It was not real, and it did affect the overall feel of the book for me. Okay, now the things I'd liked about this story. The characters. I did like the characters in this book, and I don't like characters all the time in Riley Sager books. In most of his books, There are certain characters I do like, some I don't like. It's even got books where I didn't like the protagonist at all. But in this book, I like all the characters. They're all well written. It's the plot that lets them down in this book. The twists and turns in this story, they're good. Riley Sager can write good twists. He always does in his books, and I always enjoy them. Well, usually. There are some twists in this book. There are some twists that are just out of nowhere. So they're good and bad twists in this story. But when they're good, they're very good. So Riley Sager does deliver on that part of the story. The mystery in this book is very good. It's well plotted, well planned, just feels well constructed in the story. But it needed other elements to be good as well to make it really work and to make it have that Gothic feel, because that's the big thing lacking in this story for me, is the Gothic feel. So it's trying to use the house itself to add a Gothic feel, and it does in a small way, but you need more than that. We have, I guess, one character, I think, that adds a certain Gothic feel, but other characters don't. So that's a bit of a miss for me as well, because you need more than one character to add that in a Gothic type story. And you can't rely on just those two things in a story for the overall Gothic feel. It just doesn't work. You need other things as well. I think the author tried to inject some kind of spooky elements in there to make a Gothic feel, some doubt in there about certain things, but it just didn't feel like that. I felt a little bit comical in a way, and it just didn't feel strong enough, because certain things happen and then it's forgotten about because you have overuse of this dialogue and overuse of other things going on that strip away any type of suspense, any type of Gothic feel that may be building up. That's a big miss for me in this story, and I think it's mismarketed because I don't get a really heavy sense of Gothic atmosphere in this book. Kit is our main character. Now, the big thing about Kit is, for me, she seemed to be written as younger than she is in the story. That's down to how her actions, behaviour, how she even carries herself and talks and thinks in the story. So she's well explained. She is well created in the fact that she's consistent and she feels real. But she just has a different, younger feel to her than her age in the story. That made her a good character, but not a perfect character in my view. Lenora is well written, Lenora being the person that Kit is caring for in this story. But Lenora is the owner of, I think, one of the worst kept secrets in this story, because there are certain things in this book that happen and you just don't believe, I guess, what's going on with Lenora in parts of this story. Well, I didn't anyway. So I'm not going to give those things away because it will spoil the book. But I think Lenora as a character seems like a good character, but it's the plot, I think, that lets her down. So again, we have another good character that could have been better with a better told story, in my view. Mrs. Baker is where the Gothic feel is the strongest in this book. Of all the things in this book, Mrs. Baker owns the Gothic feel. And she's a good character, I think. She's very strong, very consistent. She does feel real. She does feel a little bit spooky and chilling in some ways. That's the Gothic bit coming in with this character. But she feels like a copy of that apartment manager character in Lock Every Door. She just feels like she's a copy of that with a few little tweaks here and there to make her feel just unique enough to be a different character. And thinking about that, I do think some of the other characters in this book are almost copies of other characters in Lock Every Door. So that's just strange for me. It's like Riley Sager's taken some of those characters from one of his books, tweaked them, and then put them into this book. I don't know if other people think that, but it feels like that in this story to me. The only one left is definitely not the strongest Riley Sager book. I would say middle of the road. There are things I enjoyed, but there are a lot of things I didn't enjoy, and a lot of things that just strip away any suspense and tension that's building up, and that Gothic atmosphere that the blurb says should be there. I didn't feel it very strongly. I felt it in one character, and maybe bits and pieces with the house, but not really strong in this story. I rate this a 3 out of 5. Not my favourite Riley Sager book, not the worst book he's written, but definitely he's got better books out there. On my channel, I review many mysteries. If you enjoy mysteries, check out my channel and subscribe. On the screen now is a link to a video for another book I'm sure you'll enjoy.